Welcome to California Virtual Family Law Attorney with founder Linda Garrett.
Welcome to California Virtual Family Law Attorney with founder Linda Garrett. Linda has been practicing family law in California for over 20 years and is the founder of Law Office of Linda C. Garrett, based in Solano County. Through traditional representation and family law legal coaching, she helps individuals across California navigate divorce and custody matters with clarity, structure, and informed decision-making. I'm Leann Lyon, and today Linda is addressing how long a divorce actually takes in California and what factors truly affect the timeline. Hello, Linda.
Hi, good afternoon.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Yes, lovely to see you again. So, Linda, what is the minimum time requirement for a divorce in California, and where does that rule come from?
So there isn't a rule, but let me tweak the question just a bit. The question I get asked, like, oh, I don't know, maybe a dozen times a week, is how long will this take and how much will this cost? And then I go, ha, 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 ha. I really do that. I laugh and I say respectfully, I have no idea. And any attorney who tells you otherwise is lying through their teeth. The reason, and again, in that other podcast, I'd mentioned my experience. I've got almost 25 years in exclusive family law, 14 courthouses, 11 counties, and I've learned a lot. And what I've learned is that at the end of the day, what the one key determination, one, for how long and how much is the personality of the parties. In another podcast, I'd mentioned where you can be married for 1 year, no kids, take 2 years in divorce. You can be married 45, 50 years with a lot of property and assets and be divorced in 6 months. So at the end of the day, when I say personality of the parties, it's because they're the drivers of the level of cooperation and communication. So, for example, these are all true stories. These are not coming out of my head. These actually have happened where my one client, Michael, back in San Francisco, was just got divorced 6 weeks earlier. The ink is not dry yet, but he went to Paris. While he was on a business trip, he fell in love with a Parisian model, decided she's the one, and he marries her, brings her back to the States. She's gorgeous. She was, I admit. I understood why Michael decided to marry her. But little known to Michael was that she was a heroin addict. Yes, I know. People are always like, ooh, okay, keep talking. And so she needed her drug. And so she would do things like fall off of a car to get hurt and get some oxycodone at the doctor's. She was getting his money that he had saved, a lot of 6 figures of savings. She was going through it. And he saw the red flags. He goes, yeah, I guess I should have waited and not got married so quick. So he decides to divorce her. Great. But then she gets an attorney who decides to try to get support for her. And that's fine. And in California, we have a general rule of thumb that if somebody asks for support and the court grants it, the rule of thumb is half the life of the marriage. So we're thinking 6 months. Normal, except for she drug out the case and she didn't show up in court or she wouldn't fill out her documents, dragging the case along further and further until now we're at the 2-year mark. We have a trial because she still wants support. And did I win the case? Yes. Even the court scolded her. But the point was, it wasn't for her to win the case. It was she was dragging it out because she knew as long as it was in the court system, she was still getting temporary support. So,
Amazing.
yes. So that's an example. I can go literally, there's thousands. But at the end of the day, it is the personality of the parties. And I think you asked me, or you can ask another question, but I think it had to do with the property itself.
Actually, there's a 6-month minimum in California. Where did that come from?
It comes from the school of thought that when people fight, they say, I'm going to divorce you. And they might have a big blowout. Whatever the reason is, they're like, I'm pissed off, or I'm going to divorce you. And so then If allowed, they do file for divorce that following Monday. But then as time goes on, they've had a chance to cool down. And that's why we call it the cooling off period, because we need enough time to make sure you really want this, because getting divorced is huge. You're dividing your being, you're dividing your house, your cars, your assets, your pensions, the kids, support issues, like everything that makes you who you are is being divided or given away if it's considered separate property. So before you make that big decision, we're going to give you a time to cool off. I don't know what the word came from or where it started, but to my knowledge and experience, it's always been a 6 month rule. And then,
Mm.
and sure enough, I've had many cases where somebody calls me saying, I'm thinking of filing for divorce. And I said, okay, well, call me when you're ready, but think this through because this is a really big step that's going to change you forever. The kids, you're now going to be dealing with stepchildren, and your kids will be dealing with the new 18-year-old girlfriend your husband's now dating. It's a lot of consequences before without realizing it. So that's why we have
Mm.
6 months to now think this through so that when you do continue on, you have been forewarned of what's to come because the grass is not always greener on the other side. Sometimes where you were was actually better than what you're walking into.
So, what role do financial disclosures and property division play in delaying or streamlining a divorce?
Yes, where the role it plays is in I call it the train track analogy. When anyone asks me, I try to pretend like I know nothing about divorce. I know nothing about family law. I've never been divorced. I've never spoken to an attorney, so I try to pretend I'm in their shoes. And so what I do is I say, well, let's do it this way. Pretend there's a train, and it's going to be going from north, Wairika, which is the northernest city of California, all the way down, ending in San Diego or the Mexican border. So we're going all the way through. And so in California, to get divorced, we'll keep it simple with no kids, just keeping it simple. Um, we have to start with the petitioner. That's the person who's filing for divorce. And I said, well, you have your Willy Wonka ticket. You go up to the conductor, say, I want to get on the train. And he says, get on the train, watch your Netflix. And our first stop's going to be in Napa. And that's a mandatory stop. And that mandatory stop is we got to serve your spouse. And now we're going to sit here for 30 days to figure out one of two, or wait for him to do with her or him to do one of two things, either do nothing or to file a response. But until that, we can't move the train any further. So then the 30 days is up. She thinks she's going to keep on going. No, he files his response. So now he has his ticket. He gets on the train. And assuming we just stick to what are called mandatory stops, because you can have optional stops, but the mandatory stop, the next one, I say, now we're in Los Angeles. We have to stop the train here because now we have to do these disclosures. And people say, well, why? I say, well, you're asking the court to get the ring off the finger. You're asking the court to divide everything. And you're also asking the court to confirm this inheritance that you said was yours from your Aunt Gertrude. So you're asking the court to do a lot of things, as is he. And so before we can do that, we have to figure out what's on the kitchen table. We're going to put everything on the table. And so that we call that the disclosure phase, where you're supposed to identify all assets, all debts, all liabilities, such as lawsuits. And people get stuck in what I call the quicksand phase of this discovery because, oh, I just won't mention the lottery ticket I just got 3 months ago, or she doesn't need to know about that private account that has 80 grand in it that I've been saving for the last 10 years during our marriage. She doesn't need to know. Well, things happen. Delays, which should be maybe a 2-week process, Leanne, can take years. And why do we need this phase? Because we can't proceed to getting this resolved until we've been fair and divided everything. Like, yeah, I agree with you. That Mustang your dad gave you, if that's yours, agreed. But I don't agree with you that I get no support. I don't agree with you that that lottery ticket is yours. You bought it, sure, after separation, but with our money from your paycheck that you earned during the marriage. So they have to discuss these issues. They negotiate, they parlay. And then at this phase, after they have that full disclosure, then again, they'll have a settlement discussion. And one of three things happens. You either have a full, what's called a global agreement, or the partial agreement, or no agreement. And then at that point, as we're moving this train along, choo, 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 we say, well, guess what? We don't have a full agreement, or we only have a partial. It's time to bring the judge on the train with us now. The judge says, okay, what's going on here? Why are you guys stuck? And that's the mandatory settlement conference phase, which is in like Anaheim. And the court says, okay, well, we're going to set this for a trial. And then I'm going to hear the evidence, or get the evidence. And so it's going to prove to me why this should be the case versus that. And then there's a trial. Then the judge decides on the things that were not settled. And then finally, I don't know, 10 years later, yes, it happens. They're in San Diego or the border, and the conductor, looking exhausted, says, okay, everyone, you're off the train. We are done. And so that's why this phase called the disclosure is very important. Just a little.
Just a little.
Just a tad.
So that was the no kids version. How does custody...
Yes.
Right. So how do custody disputes affect the overall timeline of a case?
Well, again, 6 months to 18 years. Literally. One of my first cases in San Francisco was between a model, a colored Debbie, and her husband was a car dealer. He owned a dealership in Marin. And she had decided to adopt a child, and he didn't want any children. But she convinced him. He said, okay, fine, we'll have a kid. A year into the child being born, she files for divorce. And because, remember that personality of the parties, to hurt her for divorcing him, he says, I'm going to ask for sole physical and sole legal of our child. That case lasted until the child graduated high school and was 18. The County Marin had this file that was like, there's the A through Z, then the AA through ZZ, and the AAA through ZZZ. It was so long. And so again, it comes down to the personality of the parties. So it's the bottom line. Why is there an issue on custody? Is it the mom feels scorned or dad feels scorned because somebody cheated? Is it because they feel that parent's not a good parent, they're an alcoholic? Can you prove it? All these factors and about a million more other factors the courts will look at under what's known as the best interest of the child test. So back to our, how do the parties communicate? Oh, I hate him. Absolutely hate him. And he will never see the kids. Okay, you're going to be in court for the next 18 years. True story.
So they were actually married then for 18 years.
No, they got the
because they
divorce.
couldn't-
So they finally got the divorce. So you can, in California, have what's called a bifurcation. And I know we're digressing a bit, but that is important. We do get these cases where it's on and on and on. And so eventually husband, who I was going to say you, but I'm going to keep you safe for now. Husband statistically, and again, I'm a stats person, statistically marries someone younger than their spouse. Painful, but true. And so using our example, husband starts dating, he meets a girl who's fresh out of college. Meanwhile, he's in his 50s and he wants to get married, but he can't. So he can ask the court, once he's done his disclosures, because that's a mandatory step, to get divorced. And the courts can, under certain conditions, bifurcate, get the ring off the finger, and then we'll still reserve and discuss all the other issues later. So this weekend, he's getting married. Come back on Monday. We're going to continue on with the case. Because they're fighting over and over about custody. Think of Angelina Jolie and her husband, ex-husband, Brad Pitt. They're still in courts, and each child is aging out.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So how do court schedules, judicial availability, and procedural requirements impact timing, even when both parties are ready to move forward? And let's assume good communication.
Oh, right. So back to one of the questions you had asked, whether in this podcast or another, is how long does it take? And but again, when I laugh, I say, well, the reason I will never know, because I can't control you. I can't control your spouse. I can't control their counsel. I can't control the judge. I can't control the judge's calendar or schedule. That's all these things besides me that I cannot control. And one of them, absolutely, Leann, is the court's calendar. And ironic that you should say that, because just yesterday this happened in one of my domestic violence cases. The mother was self-represented, getting coaching. She filed for domestic violence restraining orders back in October of 2024. She kept having to continue her hearing because husband was hiding and he was on a ship and she could not serve him. And he knew he knew about it because you can see the court's website, and he had been told, and the wife had told him, but because he had never been served in hand, he kept not showing up. So it got continued and continued because of him. So then finally, wife gets him served. Yoo-hoo, he served. And so then we have a hearing, and but the court says father hires an attorney, and it turns out husband is ill, so we need another continuance. So then finally we have our trial date. It's set for January of this year, and the court continues it to April because they're not available in January. So then we're all ready for April. And so that's around the corner, right? Which, like, as in a week from now, the trial date, we get a notice from the court saying we're continuing the hearing. Was supposed to be a trial. They made a mistake, so they turned the trial into a one-day hearing without anyone's knowledge to September of this year. And so then I have to file some extension of the temporary orders. And as those are being filed with the court to be signed, these orders, another notice comes that we're moving now to June. This is all the court's doing. And we're just kind of like, so as attorneys, we're asking ourselves, so do we have a hearing? Do we have a trial? What's going on? Because the mom had filed for restraining orders, child support, spousal support. And now we fast forward from October of 2024 to today. And the other attorney and I are like, so what's going to happen? We're like, I don't know. Because of the court. Yeah.
Crazy. As we wrap up this episode, and this is for somebody feeling stuck, maybe in a prolonged divorce, what can help regain that momentum and reduce the unnecessary delay?
In a short answer, and this is not to be self-serving, but I would have that person speak and pay to an attorney, whether it's me or another California attorney who's got experience. Because I can tell you this from my experience, that at least 50% of the time, there's these delays and things are not being done. My client's partially to blame. And the reason I say that is because they'll say, well, no, I'm just not going to give him custody because of blah, blah, blah. And that blah, blah, blah is the cheating, nothing to do with the kids. And I say, well, if you go to trial, not only can he get his share, if not even more so, because you're lying to the court, but he can ask you to pay his attorney's fees. So you're really going to go there?
Wow.
And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So all of a sudden, what's been holding this case up, this person that I'm talking to, is now willing to settle the case. I go, is he a great dad? Well, yeah, he is. He's a great dad. I don't want to say that to anyone else, but yeah, he's great.
Hmm.
We learn.
Well, there we go. Well, that is it for today's episode of California Virtual Family Law Attorney with Linda Garrett. If you would like to learn more about Linda's family law, legal coaching, or traditional representation services, visit lindagarrettlaw.com. Thank you for listening, and be sure to like, subscribe to the show, and leave a review if you found this episode helpful. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Leann. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.